Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I got to spend the afternoon with two of my very favorite people on earth. The two random people who were sitting behind us when we watched the spring game. It was, didn't quite live up to the warmth and sun for the most of the time, the expectation that we had for the game, but the game itself was pretty interesting. There was a lot to talk about out of that game.
Yeah, we will eventually get to talk about some of that. Kevin Noon behind the camera here, but interesting day here, getting a lot of good feedback from viewers and listeners of the show throughout the day. Not all great feedback. Had one bit of feedback saying, talking about how wrong I am. Apparently, I'm wrong a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't recall. Is this part of your experience with the show? Is this something that you would agree with?
I mean, I remember the outcome of most of our bold prediction shows last year, so yes, I would say I think that's a fair criticism.
But again, if you're wrong about bold predictions, that just means you're too bold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're right about bold predictions, it means you're not bold enough.
So you can, dear listener, take a guess at how Tony's bold predictions went for the spring game.
We don't know, in fact, how well they went because we are still figuring out some math. But besides that, Ohio State's offense, the Scarlet team, beats the Gray team 34-28.
6.
Is it? 26. Okay, that's what it ended up at the end there. 3 quarterbacks played throughout, all basically the same kind of performance. Devin Brown at the end, his last few drives, had an opportunity to outdistance everybody, missed some throws down the stretch, but other than that, I'm not going to skip. We'll talk about C.J. Stroud and Kyle McCord, but our first good look at Devin Brown, and it was easy to see what the buzz seems commensurate with how he played, but he just missed a couple throws at the end, and he would be the talk of the spring game had he just finished.
Yeah,
at the end.
And you to your point, you look at the stats, and it was just, there was at one point when C.J. Stroud and Kyle McCord had almost exactly the same line. They both finished with 14 completions, Stroud on 22 attempts, McCord on 20 attempts, McCord with 9 more yards, both 1 touchdown, no interceptions. It was like the same game for the two of them, and Devin Brown completed 3 fewer passes on 4 more attempts than McCord and threw for 12 more yards and 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And it was just, and the pick was right at the end, and it was, the pick was Caleb Burton had Cameron Kittle beat. The ball was a little bit underthrown. It's a pretty windy day,
yes,
so that's where, that figures into this a little bit. And the ball kind of hung up there, and it kind of deflected, and Cameron Kittle ended up picking it off. But I think for a true freshman first impression, you saw there was a ball where he overshot. I think it might have also been Caleb Burton throwing kind of into the wind, and you saw some arm strength. You saw you saw some true freshman moments. There was a throw into double coverage, and he is a true freshman in his first spring. This is what it looks like. Like that's what a true freshman in his first spring looks like. But it was. There was not any point where the offense looked completely hopeless or completely helpless, like you've seen in some previous springs. The defense was not overwhelmed. The offense was not overwhelming. Was not overwhelmed. It was, honestly, it was a relatively balanced spring game for the most part.
Yeah, I think you got good stuff out of both sides, which is what you want. The Devin Brown thing was interesting. He had that overthrow. Then I think the next throw was a little bit underthrown. The one to Evan Pryor, which would have been 6 as well. But so he's still, and again, you could probably hear the wind behind us. I won't be surprised if the tripod gets knocked over like right into Kevin. It is windy, and we are up here on the roof. But the running game, we got to see that today, which we weren't sure we would. Mayan Williams, it went over 100 yards. Evan Pryor went for about 60 or so, 50 maybe. Travion Henderson obviously only played a couple of snaps there in the thud portion of it, but I don't know if there's really much to talk about there because I don't know how much of Evan Pryor we will see during the season. It's going to be tough. they will try to find some things for him. But when you have Travion Henderson, you have got Mayan Williams, and you like to throw the ball as much as you do, it's going to be incumbent upon Evan Pryor to continue to show, like, you need me. You can use me. I can be used. I can be valuable. Find some spots for me. Like they always used to do with DeMario McCall.
So defensive back Evan Pryor, is that what I'm hearing? Now, I think what you saw out of Evan Pryor this spring, and especially in the spring game, was if it comes down to they need to use him for 10, 15 carries a game, they probably have a viable Big Ten running back there with Pryor. You saw him running between the tackles. The fact that it was tackle and not thud, you can draw a few more conclusions, I think, from that. He looked good, and he looked explosive. They hit him on a wheel route at one point that from from Brown to Pryor for 30 whatever yards, and he looks like someone who could be an impact player for Ohio State if they need him to be. And it's more a matter of how many opportunities are there going to be rather than can he live up to that. Yeah,
and you can say that about a lot of guys, that it's a deep offense. Talking about the receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, it was like Ryan Day gave a gift to the fans. Like, we're not going to play him a lot, but while he's out there, we're going to get him the ball. You'll get your little excitement, and then he's going to come out. And, it was very easy to predict. I don't know if anybody predicted it, but, he gets his touchdown pass, races into the end zone. You get your look at Jackson Smith and Jigba, and now he gets put away until the season starts.
Yeah, and that's that's all you really need. Like it was, you got just a little bit of Travion Henderson, just a little bit of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yeah, I mean it was 3 carries for Travion Henderson, 2 catches for Jackson Smith and Jigba, but like ta-da, they're here, okay. And Travion Henderson looked very quick, hitting that hole.
Yeah.
It was. They really, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different guys. Oh, well, it says 17 at the bottom, so either they cut one off or something. But anyway, a whole bunch of guys caught passes. 7 different guys carried the ball. It was a spring game. They spread the ball around. The leading receiver had 50 yards, and that was Xavier Johnson. Had 3 catches for 50 yards.
G. Scott also had 50 yards.
G. Scott had 40 yards. G. Scott had 5 catches for 40 yards. Evan Pryor 4 for 44, Emeka Egbuka 4 for 30.
Big play.
Yeah, there was not any huge play. No one had a play longer than 35 yards. That was.
I think the wind had a lot to do with that in terms of.
Yeah.
They only took a few shots, and it was really a crapshoot on that stuff. The back shoulders weren't open either. There's some underthrows that I think got adjusted by the wind that weren't necessarily back shoulder. They turned into front shoulder as they were just underthrown. And then, as we have been alluding to with the tight ends, this being 2022, the year of the tight end, this is what the spring game is for, the tight ends. And I apologize if the wind is coming through on these microphones. I imagine it has to be. But she's got very busy, the middle of the field very open. And don't worry about that with the defense. It is what it is at this point, but Joe Royer got a touchdown, nice touchdown in the end zone. We saw, I don't know that Cade Stover caught a pass. That's too bad. So. I still think he's going to be okay, Tom, but the young guys kind of following through on some of the words we've been hearing about them, Joe Royer and G. Scott. Also, it's beneficial to the young guys who haven't been playing to get a heavy workload in the spring game. And speaking of one of those guys, Julian Fleming, day to day, just a slight injury. He was dressed, he just didn't warm up, and so just no worries there in terms of. I saw there's a bunch of drama whenever Julian Fleming is mentioned or concerned who doesn't see the field, but just Ryan Day said day-to-day thing. But back to the tight ends.
Yeah, you mentioned the 2 G. Scott, 5 catches, 40 yards. Joe Royer 2 for 37 and a really nice touchdown on a second and goal from the 24 or second and 20 or something like that, and really nice went up and got it. And but you had Patrick Gurr 2 catches, 13 yards. Bennett Christian 2 catches, 8 yards. They were kind of working the tight end, and you never know quite what to read into. Like wow, they're throwing the ball a ton to the tight end today. Is that sort of demonstrating the tight ends like, look, you're part of the offense. or is that this is what's open right now
Yeah.
because of what the defense is giving you, or is it more of a check down offense today because of the win? Like you can read into that whatever you want to read into that. You mentioned Julian Fleming not playing. That was one of the kind of disappointments because we pregame talked about the fact that it would be great if you finally get a chance to see what he can do. Because he's been so banged up over his career, and it's like, if you could this be a really big day for him? And then no, he's dinged up again. The other thing that was, I think, the only truly piece of bad news was Mitchell Melton went down. We have not heard an update on his status, but he went down, was grabbing his knee in a way that was not a minor knee tweak, but
right.
you don't know until you get the official word. We'll probably hear from Day on Monday, Tuesday, whatever this week, what the status is there. Because even if it is a minor knee tweak, they're going to hold him out for the rest of the game anyway, so you can't necessarily read into that. But that's certainly one to keep an eye on because he was impressive in the time that we saw him out there.
And I was looking to see if he ever came back out and was just a lot of times guys get dinged up or injured and they'll come back and their pads will be off, but they still have their jerseys on. But I didn't see him back out there again. He kind of walked off under his own power. I mean, he had some help, but he was putting weight on it. But then going back to the locker room, they pretty much helped him off. But there's any number of things that could be, so no reason to speculate on it now. But yeah, that was, I don't want to say if you only get out with one injury, you're happy, but because you're not. But so that was the downside of today's game. Although for I'd say another aspect that wasn't great. This is Paris Johnson had some rough snaps. He was had a false start. Had I think he had a hold as well. Had some issues pass blocking. Am I concerned? No, but this is one of those things you're going to analyze everything, and when we go home and watch it on television, we're going to analyze it some more. And maybe those were his 3 or 4 worst snaps, and the other 35 snaps he had were stupendous. But when you get flags called on you, the spotlight is on you. So that was a little unfortunate, but also that's one of those things where he's going to have that on film. He's going to hear about it. I just hope he doesn't hear about it on Twitter.
Yeah, and yes, don't at the players, please. That is a very important part of the process. As for you, dear fans, do not at the players. He's this is a work in progress, and we talked before the game about the fact that this is the Ohio State offensive line versus the Ohio State defensive line. The depth of the Ohio State defensive line is so significant, and we saw a lot of JT Tuimoloau out today, and you saw a lot of Jack Sawyer today, and those guys are pretty darn good. And so you're how many defensive ends are they going to face? Is Paris Johnson going to face that are better than JT Tuimoloau, better than Jack Sawyer this year? Not that many. So. Again, you learn from it. You've got 15 more. You got all summer. You got 15 more practices before the fall. There's a lot of time still. He is just adjusting. This spring not only changing position but also changing size of the line. There's a lot that goes into that. So that this is certainly not panic button time by any means. Something to keep an eye on. I mean, there were a couple guys who jumped out on the line as like, oh boy, that guy didn't have a great day, but. This is the spring game, so how much do you read into that versus, wow, Ohio State's got some really talented pass rushers?
Yeah. Caden Curry's running with like the threes when he's, when they're 6 or 7 deep in the defensive end. And you mentioned Mitchell Melton, who was also, one of those guys. But Tyler Friday didn't play. That's another guy. Like they're very deep at defensive end. It was interesting. Donovan Jackson was like the second left tackle. And when the second team came out, he moved to left tackle. Enoch Vermont, he got some time left tackle. George Fitzpatrick. Yeah. So they're looking, and they need to, because right now they've got. I could say 7 with Josh Fryer, even though Josh Fryer was out this spring. I think they feel good about 7. They need to feel good about more, and so that's still also a work in progress. The defensive line, Tom, we talked a little bit about the defensive ends. Interesting again, it's Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Zach Harrison who get the start, and Teron Cage and I believe Teron Vincent. And then the second wave is the second-year guys of JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall, or actually Ty Hamilton, the third-year guy, was the first second nose tackle in. And it's a nice wave. It's fun to watch when they can just as we talked in the pregame show, this guy, how many different Big Ten teams would this guy start at? How many different Big Ten teams would this backup start at? Like, that foursome is good enough to start at Ohio State, and will be starting at Ohio State before too long. Kevin.
Let me turn my mic on. We got a super chat from Bill Mick. Did it seem either or both of you that the D-backs seemed to grow more comfortable as the game played out? By the way, the Paris Johnson face mask was not him. A mistaken call of his number.
Is somebody calling the ref wrong?
That's the second part of it, but it seemed that, I mean, we'll get the first part. It seemed that the D-backs seemed to get more comfortable as the game played out.
I really liked what I saw out of the cornerbacks, Kai Stokes as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was if they got better as they got going. I thought they looked good almost throughout. Now, a lot of that, the short stuff, whatever, they were locked down pretty tight downfield more. Now they did break free a little bit at the end, like Jair Brown gave up something and had to have some catch up. But Denzel Burke had some of the best snaps we've seen from a corner, like that the deep one to Marvin Harrison early on. Jordan Hancock had 2 outstanding plays right in a row, breaking up a pass and then lighting somebody up on a tackle. I think I liked what I saw from the defensive backs. The corners, Cameron Brown played a little bit, but I'll be interested to watch back and see how Josh Proctor looked and Ronnie Hickman and those guys. But just from watching some of those corners, I was really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, looking more comfortable later in the game. Well, Jackson Smith and Jigba was on the bench later in the game, so that's going to make defensive backs look a little more comfortable. And when it's, Kyle McCord or Devin Brown instead of C.J. Stroud, that's going to make defensive backs look a little more comfortable probably. But, yeah, to your point, I mean, there was no one on that defensive backfield. I mean, we talked before the show about that being, or before the game, about, wide receivers versus defensive backs, and that's, that's a really tough matchup for the Ohio State defensive backs because the wide receivers go so deep. And there was no one out there who looked lost. There was no one out there who looked overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There was, and the wind helps a little bit with, especially some of the younger guys. But, yeah, Denzel Burke looked exactly like, Ohio State fans probably hoped Denzel Burke would look. You have Cam Brown, in the time he was playing, looked like Cam Brown, looked like a healthy Cam Brown. Jordan Hancock really, I feel like you saw what we had been hearing all spring with him, like, okay, this is it is coming together, it is starting to happen. And then J.K. Johnson played perfectly well. And then you get to the safeties, and I feel like we didn't see a ton of Cam Martinez. There was a decent amount of Tanner McAllister to start, and I feel like we saw a lot more Tanner McAllister than Cam Martinez. But back there, Kai Stokes had a very big game. He was just constantly in there making plays all day. Andre Turrentine felt like he had a pretty good day. It was just everything kind of looked like okay. There are some good options there for them. And if you have 3 good corners, even if you want to say J.K. Johnson was maybe a little behind Hancock, even if you just have 3 good corners right now, they're going to be feeling real good about that. And if J.K. Johnson gives them 4, I can't remember the last time they had 4 corners and they were all right, feel good about him.
Well, and you and I even talked about Kai Stokes during the game because he was on my fantasy draft, my fantasy team, and he had no points, but he was one of the best players on defense, which is the unfortunate part. But yeah, you heard his game quite a bit on the PA. You saw him out there, and he's kicking himself for that one interception that got away. But man, you watch players, and you're like, that guy has it. That's a guy to watch. We saw that with Denzel Burke. We see that, I think, with Kai Stokes. Now, he's not going to be starting this year. He may not be starting next year. I think they'll probably find a place for him, though. But, he was good to watch.
Yeah, and, a couple other guys who were young, very young guys who are not going to start this year. So dial the expectations back down. But C.J. Hicks had a couple times that he flashed. Gabe Powers had a big hit at one point. It was feels like there might be something there with those guys. And, again, let's not read too much into it because by the time C.J. Hicks is in the game at the end, you're going up against the second or third string offensive line, and it's Caden Saunders in the game and not Travion Henderson. Okay, yeah, we all understand the context of the spring game. Even given that context, it was okay, that's if you were a 5-star who was going to start playing like a 5-star at some point early-ish in your career in the first year or two, that's a lot like what it would look like.
And if you're going to wear 36 like Gabe Powers is and play inside linebacker at Ohio State, you might want to look like that. And he had some nice tackles and ran through one running back and watched one play where C.J. Hicks, like Mayan Williams got picked up a little bit and C.J. Hicks planted him and put him on his back. And that was definitely good to see. Your starting linebackers, Tommy Eichenberg at the middle linebacker, Steele Chambers at the will, same as we expected, same as it was last year. I don't think we saw any Sam in this game. There weren't any goal line situations or short yardage situations.
No, and Paula Ieneoteote wasn't dressed. He did not play at all. We saw some Reed Carrico, but we saw him inside. I think he was at the will when we saw him. So, you weren't expecting to see a lot of Sam because, you're going to see the Sam when they're playing Wisconsin, when they're playing Iowa. Ohio State's offense is very much not the same as Wisconsin or Iowa, so you're not going to see it when they're playing Ohio State.
Kevin, we got any questions?
We do. I keep my mic closed until it's time for me to talk. First off, not a question, but Yakov22 really likes Tom's Kurt Rambis 1980 glasses.
Oh, thank you very much. I feel like our glasses, Kurt Rambis' glasses were more round than this, I think. Mine are more
They were bigger and, I don't know. We'll have to, this calls for some photoshopping, I think.
And I guess I don't know how Kevin has the shot frame, but I'm not sure if you can see my Kurt Rambis shorts on, but that's even better.
No, I do not. I do not have that there.
Eyes up here.
Exactly. I'm up here.
Yeah, I'm up here.
Trevor Vittora mentioned to me saying that you had said Trevion Henderson looked really fast hitting the hole. I was really impressed with the other running back. And then we kind of narrowed it down that it was Evan Pryor.
Yeah, I feel like Trevion Henderson got shortchanged by the thud tempo because he's a shifty guy that you put one hand on him and it's meaningless. But here it's a tackle, and so that's unfortunate because I think he definitely would have had a much bigger day. But again, it was very good to see Evan Pryor run through some tackles, at least have that opportunity and make it through, and he wasn't just looking to cut stuff outside, although when he did, he scored, so that's a pretty good idea too.
One thing that what do you tell me what you read into this? Trevion Henderson was only out there during thud, and then they're running the other two guys during the tackle period for 28 combined carries. I mean, to me that reads as Trevion Henderson is the clear-cut number one back on this team. Now, maybe he had something else going on, or he's got some lingering minor or whatever that he was able to play a little bit, but they didn't want to do. Maybe. But to me, that certainly is suggestive of Trevion Henderson, and then there's a gap before you get to the other guys. And, they very clearly like both of the other guys, but it feels like there's a little bit of a gap.
Well, it's one of those things where Mayan Williams, do you want him, if you only give him 5 carries and hey, you're at the top of Trevion Henderson, but you don't play in the spring game.
Yeah.
Or do you give him a bunch of carries to show you how much you like him?
Yeah.
And that makes him happy because he's actually playing.
Yeah.
And again, it's just one practice, but what kind of balance and dance do you have to do where, no, you're only going to see the ball 4 times, well, maybe he wants it more. And it's but we're only giving it to you 4 times because you're so valuable to us. We want you. But it's well, if you want me, then why don't you use me?
Right.
And so there's this.
And the other interesting thing with Trevion Henderson is, going back to last year, he talked about how he couldn't wait to get hit. Evan Pryor was, when the two of them coming in, Evan Pryor was well, if I do my job right, I don't get hit. And Trevion Henderson man, I can't wait to get hit. So it was a little interesting to me to see him play, so few snaps. But again,
Are you throwing the word prima donna out there? Is that what you're doing, Tom? Is that what you're trying to do? And you're walking me into it?
I'm throwing several possible explanations out there, and that is not any of them. But it does feel like
he's afraid to get hit.
Again.
All right.
At Tony Gerdeman. Don't tweet the players. Feel free to tweet at Tony or approach him in the parking lot and tell him he's wrong.
Tony Gerdeman, 123 at hotmail.com.
614.
We got people asking about recruiting. Wingman Ted, any word on potential recruits in the stands or on the sidelines?
Yeah, we were there watching the recruits parade in before the game. In terms of you don't want to read too much into a situation, but there were a whole bunch of recruits who took the bus. And then there was 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola, who arrived chauffeured by Corey Dennis on a golf cart, who pulled right up through the gates, zipped right in. Jaden Davis, I think, was supposed to be here this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't think Jaden Davis was in the golf cart, so I think if you want to do a little tea leaf reading there.
Well, and then R.J. Day was giving him a tour later on. Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
Walking around.
Ryan Day's son.
I think maybe the most interesting, if such a thing can be possible, is USC transfer kicker Parker Lewis was at the game. He is a 2-year starter at USC, entered the transfer portal in December. Technically still has 3 years of eligibility, so could come in and redshirt and then still play 3 years after that, which I think would be the ideal thing. He was honorable mention all Pac-12 as a freshman. Last year was like 19 of 24 or something, kicking field goals. And it's a really odd, I don't want to say odd, it's just right now the situation with Jake Seibert, he did play, but it sure seems like they still have their concerns about him.
Well, and you have the situation with Noah Ruggles too, where Noah Ruggles is still on the team. He was listed on the roster for today, but he wasn't here because he's back home. So you don't know quite. Like Ryan Day was kind of vague about it, which is like, well, that could just be a privacy thing, or that could be there's more to the story thing, and you don't really know. But with Ruggles, if he is back this fall, this is his last year, so you could potentially redshirt Parker Lewis and have him kick 3 more years. We'll see. I thought it was very interesting. I was just taking pictures of these guys walking in and saw Parker Lewis on a name tag, which that's a name obviously that will stick with any late 80s, early 90s kid for obvious reasons. He, of course, and I remembered him being the USC kicker. I was like, oh, it's funny, there's a USC kicker named Parker Lewis. And then it was like, that guy looks a lot like USC kicker Parker Lewis, and then if you zoom in enough on his name badge, you can see USC on the bottom of it. It's like, aha, I have cracked the code. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. He was not a name that I had heard floated before the weekend. They have the usual gaggle of 5-star wide receivers and quarterbacks and all that, and that's ho-hum Brian Hartline's going to bring in five more of the top 8 wide receivers in the country. What else is new?
I think with the Noah Ruggles thing, and I haven't talked to him. I don't know if this would be the case, but if he's graduated, is that correct? So,
yeah. Yes.
So then why start grad school now? Start it in the fall.
Well, he graduated from UNC, didn't he? I believe he was a grad transfer from UNC.
Then Tom, he's going to get a second postgraduate degree. Why start now? Wait until the fall.
Yeah, it's possible, and you can, if he's doing, I don't know what his grad program is, but let's just say it's an MBA. If you're doing an MBA, you can do that all online, so you could do that from home.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, it's an unusual situation, and you don't know quite what to read into it. So,
but they said he'll be back, so
yeah,
he's not here now, but
right, yeah, we know he wasn't here today, and then we'll see.
Another recruiting question from Trenton, more specifically on one player. Obviously talking about the tight end output today. Might be a slight recruiting pitch to Walker Lyons, 4-star tight end from California today. He is the teammate of 4-star wide receiver Rico Flores. And Rico's time is now.
Yeah, I did see Walker Lyons tweet from a downtown area, downtown-ish, short north-ish bar yesterday, or restaurant. So yeah, he was in town. I guess if a tight end is going to make any kind of visit to any kind of Ohio State game,
oh boy, this is the time of year.
The spring game is the time to visit.
Not only the year to do it, obviously, for obvious reasons, but yes, the time of year to do it as well. Yeah.
He's probably like, can I come to the Michigan game? No, son. Why don't you come to the spring game and just see how see how we use the tight end in this offense?
Yeah, and the tight end conversation is so interesting. G. Scott, 5 catches for 40 yards. Was that an attempt to show G. Scott that he has a role in the offense? Was that an attempt to woo Lyons in terms of look at how we use the tight ends? Was it just quarterbacks wanting to check down because of the wind? Was it what the defense was giving them? I mean, the answer is sure. Whichever of those suits the point that you're trying to make online, that's the one that it definitely is.
I think every single tight end, even Sam Hart and Patrick Gerd at the end, had multiple passes thrown to them, except for Kate Stover. Like, I don't know that he had a single pass thrown to him, so I don't know if that gives you more insight into whatever you do, don't start. Don't be the starting tight end. Be the second guy, and the guy comes off the bench.
We're having fun in the chat talking about Rico's Time Is Now and Dr. Pepper, so I was laughing about that. Another Trenton question, was it super windy or just underthrows? Kind of touched on that, but notice there were a lot of late underthrows, it seemed like. On the INT was one example, and I'll throw in two. It seemed like CJ was a little short on a couple throws as well.
Yeah. No, I definitely think the wind was, I mean, it's a fact. Now, granted, we are on the roof of a parking garage, but it is very windy up here. The flags, they didn't have them all up, but they were never just like dropped. Like it's been blowing all day long, but CJ was short. That wasn't great, but I think he'll get over it.
Time to panic?
No, well, maybe, but the conditions weren't ideal. This was more of a November, as I said before the game. This is like more of a November game than anything in April. Windy, cold, a little wet at times. I don't think enough to alter much, but I would chalk this up to the short passes, to the weather. And like I said, the back shoulder stops, I think back shoulder throws, I think they were affected to where the wind blew them to the front shoulder, and maybe that's what made the corners look so good, Tom.
If it makes throwing the ball harder, it can't hurt, right? I think the other thing is you will have programs that will treat the spring game like this like whimsical thing where they're going to run all sorts of crazy crap you'll never see in the fall. That seemed much more like you didn't. Did we see a trick play? I don't think we even saw like an end around, right? I mean, it was just kind of like base offense, base defense, nothing crazy. And that's just a different philosophy. Like I feel like Steve Spurrier always used to be like, oh, we're going to just run the A11 this time, like just because what the heck, like.
And like people from radio stations calling in plays.
Oh
Celebrity play callers and assistant coaches.
Oh yeah, and you'd have you've got sports writers being the official for the fourth quarter of the game. You're the back judge for the spring game. Like Ohio State takes it a little more. It's the spring game, so you don't take it too seriously, but they take it a little more seriously than that. So you don't have some of the crazy stuff you'll see in other spring games. It's a little more basic pro forma kind of stuff.
A couple of people have been asking, probably got onto the show a little bit later, want to know the status of what we've heard on Julian Fleming.
Yeah, Julian Fleming, day to day, nothing serious, just no reason to push him out there, and that's unfortunate because we were both looking forward to seeing what he could do, getting an opportunity to be one of the top guys out there, but. Yeah, they're going through warm-ups, and he was dressed. He was, he had all of his gear, had his helmet, but didn't go through warm-ups and just decided to hold him out. So nothing terrible there, no worries at that point, because I know everybody there's a lot of people just waiting for him to hit the portal or thinks this was another sign that he's heading out, but just he was in good spirits on the sideline. I saw him like poking teammates and just messing with dudes. So I think it's always a much better sign than when you're off just by yourself with your head down holding your helmet. He was engaged, so that's good.
Another guy that kind of fits in that bucket that we mentioned earlier, I think, was Court Williams, safety. He's, they're talking about him probably at that boundary spot. We saw a lot of Josh Proctor there, or a decent amount of Josh Proctor there today, and no Court Williams. He had just a little hamstring thing going on. So I think that was another sort of precautionary thing, not necessarily time to panic, but he's another guy who I was looking forward to seeing. Yeah. And then we had heard that one before. We hadn't heard about the Fleming thing before, but yeah, that was that was another one where it was like that's too bad because that's someone you keep hearing about and you'd like to see him.
We got to see him once again in the Rose Bowl and then like never again since, or never before since.
Chad said it was nice how Fields, Olave, and other players showed up. Hopefully the recruits enjoyed that. There
are a bunch of former players down on the sideline. They honored them and brought them all out at one point, and I don't know, there was 100.
Yeah, they brought out, and I don't know if that was a function of, because it felt like more former players than in previous years, but I don't know if that was a function of Dwayne Haskins and honoring Dwayne Haskins and teammates coming back, at least in part because of that, or if this was just, trying to make a point to bring some more of those guys back.
Also the 100th year of Ohio Stadium.
Yeah, they put, if you were not at the game, I don't know if they showed this on BTN or not, but they were just parading guys in front of the camera every stoppage and play. And Orlando Pace, what was your favorite memory in the horseshoe? Chris Olave, what was your favorite memory in the horseshoe? Justin Fields, what was your favorite memory in the horseshoe? Bobby Carpenter, there were a whole bunch of guys. But, in previous years, you will see a lot of returning players. I have pictures of Marvin Harrison when Marvin Harrison was visiting. Marvin Harrison posing with Michael Thomas. Like, it's like, that's kind of cool. Like there was, I think Dylan Raiola was talking to Justin Fields at one point on the sidelines. Like it's a nice little recruiting thing. Like, oh, hey, look, all of these NFL players who used to play football here, they happen to be here. Would you like to talk to the guy from your position about how his time at Ohio State has prepared him for his lucrative career in the NFL? You would? Well, how convenient he's right here.
Yeah, I always go back to the Paris Johnson photo with Orlando Pace a few years back where those two are standing next to each other. And it's like, if you're a left tackle and you're looking at Ohio State and you're talking to Orlando Pace, like, where else are you going to go?
Yeah, and that was a fall game, but not a spring game. But yeah, still, the point is valid.
Ren 1010 said it was a fantastic tribute to Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, it was a nice video. The team was watching it, and everybody took a knee and watched that. And and we talked about it on Buckeye Weekly a couple last week when this happened. But yeah, it was a nice tribute. Everybody, the moment of silence before the game, then another tribute there at before halftime. And all of it fitting.
And I don't know how much they showed on TV, but after they showed the video at halftime, the team was all kind of kneeling, and I think Cam Babb was kind of praying or leading the team in a prayer or something, and the stadium was dead silent. Like it was more quiet then than it was during the moment of silence. That was a pretty powerful moment.
Let me turn my mic back on. Watson's season would like to know who looked better between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord.
I think I'm going to go with Kyle McCord in this one because I think he stayed the most consistent. And as we talked about before, or not before, early on, if Devin Brown hits just one or two of those throws, like he had 3 in a row where just off in terms of what would have been a touchdown. And one of them was a long pass to Evan Pryor. It's like there are still some completions, but then he had the third of those was the offsides where he had the free play.
Oh, yeah.
Threw it down in the corner just out of bounds to Keon Gray. So it's like 3 times in a row he just missed it. But again, it's windy as heck. He's a true freshman. I'm all in. He's definitely good enough to play here and do very, very well. But I think McCord was consistent and solid, and he wasn't as aggressive as last year, and maybe not as flashy, but had the best completion percentage today. I think he finished with the most yards. Nothing super. I would have liked to have seen him. I'd like to see everybody throw the ball deep more. It's a spring game, but
yeah, and I think you look at McCord last year where he was a little bit more willing to heave it downfield. Some of that might be, that was his first time. In high school you can get away with stuff that you can't get away with in college.
Devin Brown found that out.
Now he's been around long enough. Kyle McCord's been around a year now. Now Kyle McCord knows some of the stuff you can't get away with. So now he doesn't do that stuff anymore. Devin Brown is still a little more YOLO. True freshman quarterbacks are going to be a little more Leroy Jenkins than guys who've been in the system for a while, because you're trying to impress people. You're trying to make an impression. You're not completely used to, but boy, those safeties are a little faster. Yeah. They get over there a little faster in college than they did in high school, and all of those things add up to, I thought both guys played well. I don't know that I see. Yeah, I think Kyle McCord is obviously very clearly ahead of Devin Brown right now, but I don't know that that's a completely insurmountable gap. Like if Devin Brown passed Kyle McCord at some point this year, that would not completely shock me. But Kyle McCord looked perfectly, he looked like he had made some significant progress from, he looked a lot better than he did against Akron, and he was playing against a better defense than he was against Akron. So there's obviously been some significant progress there. It looks like they look like they have 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster, all of whom at some point in their careers will be championship caliber Ohio State quarterbacks.
Yep, I agree.
Wingman Ted again said, "Who do you think loses the black stripe next? Anyone based on today's performance?" I'm gonna throw my name out first because
you don't have a black stripe, Kevin.
I don't. But I was gonna say
we should give Kevin a black stripe.
Never remove it.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I had to put on my camera as I was flipping you off in my mind. I'm going to say Jair Brown. I thought Jair Brown had a couple of nice plays out there. I certainly can name a couple of other names, but I wanted to get a name out there before you guys took all of the names, and then I was left with nobody.
He had some good moments. He had a nice pass break up there in the second half. So we've seen Kai Stokes and
Caden Curry.
If I go, Devin Brown's not a bad one.
Yeah.
CJ Hicks.
CJ Hicks was the first name that popped into my mind.
Think that's a guy you got to watch there.
Someone who we picked much lower in that black stripe draft, because this is a position where you don't typically lose it very early. George Fitzpatrick looked pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
He was whatever, the third string left tackle, but he looked solid for what that is a position where it is very difficult to lose your black stripe early, and he looked.
Yeah.
I had no qualms with I had no big quarrel with George Fitzpatrick's pass pro at any point. Like he looked like he did a pretty good job.
And
so
they don't have a lot of walk-on defensive ends that they're throwing out there. Like you're facing real guys.
There was some JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and even Caden Curry, who was no joke. All the way till the end of the game. Like there were not a lot of easy reps out there, and he looked good. That's a spot where it's very, very hard to lose your stripe early. So I think, I don't expect him to be. I think he's going to lose it earlier than I would have expected, but still not super early, probably.
Yeah, because a lot of these freshman offensive linemen, unfortunately, he came in the spring, but a lot of these guys, you'll see a random tweet in October where this freshman offensive lineman has lost his stripe.
And sometimes it's next spring, like that can happen too.
Max Ray took, I think, over a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's a spot where, defensive end is a place where you get on the field early and you can just go. That was why Caden Curry went first in our black stripe draft. That's not a big surprise there. Have we talked about Keon Grace? Keon Grace, Kai Stokes. We already lost it, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I think
Keon Grace is. He has not lost his.
He is not, but Keon Grace has not lost it. Kai Stokes has, but Keon Grace I think is a good pick there as well.
Yeah, but I think I'll go with CJ Hicks.
Got a super chat coming in from Jordan, so I'm sure he's making fun of Tony. Question for all three: what number would you want to wear, and what would your thoughts be on triple-digit numbers?
Triple-digit numbers. The only way you can do a triple-digit number is if you're, who's the skinniest player in Ohio State history?
T.Y. Williams?
Yeah, Evan Pryor last year was pretty, or one of those really skinny wide receivers. Ben Victor, his freshman year.
Oh, there you go.
Ben Victor, his freshman year is a good one.
111?
188 is what I would want there. It's the same principle as the nose tackles, the 360-pound nose tackle who wears number 1, that. I want that, and I want 188 on a guy who doesn't weigh 188.
I think if you're going to wear a number at Ohio State, though, the first number that comes into my mind is 7, and maybe that will eventually change, and that has more to do with the receivers for me than the quarterbacks. That's Chris Campbell, that's Ted Ginn, that comes immediately to mind, which is funny when you think if you're going to think receivers, why not Chris Carter in 2 and Chris Olave and now Emeka Egbuka, but I immediately think of 7 as the first number that I think of that any recruit should want.
It's funny, I was going to say 7 as well, and I was going to say not because of the receivers, but because of the quarterbacks. You got Dwayne Haskins, you got Joe Germain, you got way back in the day Corny Green. CJ Stroud seems to be doing some big things with it. So I think 7 is the correct answer.
Yeah.
For me, it would be 00 because I would put an N on either side of it, and then I would just have Noon.
Why does the back of his jersey say Coco? Well, it's a long story.
No, actually, you should have 000. That way it could be Noon instead of just Noon.
Chad W. thinks that Tony should wear 911.
Because I rescue this show. Thank you very much for that.
Tony did 9/11.
I know. I'm sorry. I keep closing my mic because of the wind.
I'm not looking at my watch because of you.
Okay, we're at 45 minutes right now. Let me get back to this other question by Chad W. Did any fans recognize you and say hello?
This was, we watched the game in the stands, and this was by far the most I've ever been recognized at a game. Probably because I'm with you guys. it was very. I wouldn't say humbling. It's the opposite of that. No, but it was cool. Everybody had a lot of good stuff to say, except for obviously somebody telling me how I'm wrong a lot, which, that's a cheap shot. Yeah, you're right. So, you don't see me taking cheap shots. Go, loser.
Tell Tony friendly lies. That's what you want to do. That's
Please,
just
make me feel good.
Lie to him. Tell him he's great.
He didn't say that you were wrong a lot. He said you were wrong a lot. I mean, there was a lot of emphasis there.
Yes,
a lot of emphasis.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year you were going to be wrong a lot because of not just you in particular, but with the spring game.
Right.
You go back 5 days, and the guys we said were going to be potentially big.
Right.
One guy has a minor tweak, and all of a sudden, like, ta-da!
At least I provide what people expect. So you're welcome.
Like ketchup.
Thank you. No time, but you get recognized all the time.
Well, I'm out more on the field than you are, so yes. You looked at me at one point like, does this always happen? I was like, yeah, you're just up in the press box normally, so you don't.
And nobody talks to me up there.
Yeah. Not even Noon.
Not even.
Nope. Trenton, Scoop's defensive MVP, offensive MVP, most surprising performance.
All right. Offensive MVP, I'm going to go Evan Pryor. And you can all have your own.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive MVP. I don't have the stats in front of me. The only defensive stat.
There are no stats in the official box score, which is real helpful. I'm going to steal
Denzel
JT.
Burke.
Oh, okay, I was going to steal JT Tuimoloau out from you. So.
Now Denzel Burke didn't play long, but when he played, he was awesome.
Yeah.
Surprising performance. Kai Stokes can't be because we expected it. I would say Jair Brown's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
Surprising performance.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Evan Pryor's surprising performance as well. Can you win 2 awards there?
G. Scott.
Devin Brown.
G.
Scott.
I was surprised at G. Scott. I mean, I don't know that he's an MVP, but he, 5 catches, 40 yards. It was like the G. Scott game, and it felt like a lot more than that. As far as MVP, no one touched the ball more than Mayan Williams. 15 carries, 101 yards. I mean,
did he win?
Yes. I mean, the offense won, so yes. I think he's at least in the conversation. There's a certain part of this exercise which is like sort of silliness of the backup running back is the MVP because the starter only played 3 snaps and but yeah, I think I'm going JT Tuimoloau on defense. I'll take. Boy, there's just everyone has the same numbers, don't they?
Yeah, no, it's remarkable.
Yeah. I'm gonna take Jackson Smith and Jigba just because Jackson Smith and Jigba only played like 1 drive and was like, there's Jackson Smith and Jigba doing Jackson Smith and Jigba. I can't argue with that.
I took Denzel Burke.
Yeah.
So, Kevin?
I'll take JTT on defense as well. Mm-hmm. I'll take G. Scott as my surprising performance. And just because nobody really separated themselves offensively, I'll take C.J. Stroud because he honored Dwayne Haskins by wearing the nameplate for that first drive.
There you go. All very acceptable, and I can go with all of those.
Opening my mic back up. Yakov, is there any chance the Notre Dame game could be on a Thursday night to open the season?
Well, we know Gene Smith has said he has no plans to make it a Sunday night.
Yeah, so, and they Fox just traded Joe Buck to ESPN for the Thursday night Penn State-Purdue game. So I think it would be pretty unlikely that they would put the Notre Dame game against that.
Is that a season opener?
That is a season opener. Yes, that's a week 1 Thursday night. Okay. In what used to be the South Carolina plays a game that goes under 41. That spot that's now going to be the Purdue Penn State slot. I assume. I mean, this is going to be maybe one of the biggest games of the season, let alone the biggest games of week 1. You want to put it on Saturday primetime. That's what you're going to have more people sitting there watching Saturday primetime than Thursday primetime.
There are also Monday night games. Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, there are.
But Gene Smith just.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he was all encompassing. It's going to be a Saturday thing. Mm-hmm. He was opposed to a Sunday thing. I'm expecting that to be a Saturday night kick.
I would be. I mean, if he was opposed to a Sunday night before a holiday, I can't imagine he wouldn't also be pretty strongly opposed to a Monday night before a day when everyone goes back to school and all that. So, everyone keeps trying to tinker with that game and move it somewhere else. I still think
Ireland.
giving up home field advantage. I don't know if I could go for that from an Ohio State perspective. Yeah, I would be very surprised at this point if that changes. Just it is such a big game. A lot of you go back to like what are the games that are on those like Sunday nights of those opening weeks. So often it's Tennessee and Georgia Tech or
Miami,
Alabama, like one of those neutral site games. Like I don't think Ohio State wants to move that off of a Saturday night, and you can.
No reason to.
Yeah, the TV.
There's no reason to do that and have less preparation for the next game, even if it's Arkansas State, Bishop Sycamore, the Scoop All-Stars, whatever that might be.
Because everybody's going to be watching that game, at least for the first half.
Jason Williams just wanted to comment that about Mitchell Melton, and hopefully that his status is that he's not dealing with a serious injury.
Yeah, hopefully I assume Ryan Day will be asked about it the next time he talks. But the thing is, it's like this is like the last time you talk to Ryan Day, so you're trying to cover as much ground as you can, and sometimes you forget about a guy who is injured, and you might forget to ask about Mitchell Melton, and then but Larry Johnson is supposed to talk. Like all of the assistant coaches are supposed to talk, and so hopefully we will eventually get word. But I don't know if Day had anything after the game. Sometimes these the knee injury stuff is right after the game you don't necessarily know, and you don't necessarily want to speculate.
Right, yeah. They don't have, this is not an NFL stadium, they don't have MRI equipment here, so, I mean, theoretically they could have run him over to the hospital or whatever, but, yeah, I don't think we've heard anything definitive yet, but, maybe later in the week we'll have something.
Brady said it seemed like the run game was going pretty well. I mean, we certainly saw them go to tackle pretty much when it wasn't C.J. Stroud, and then even when it was C.J. Stroud, I mean, we thought we might get through a quarter of thud, and really it was like the first series
one drive, right?
was thud, and then they started taking guys to the ground.
You caught everybody off guard. We were expecting a couple of series, and then you see some tackling, and the crowd starts cheering.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is nice.
Yeah, but I mean, both Mayan Williams and Evan Pryor ran the ball for 6 yards and some change, which, I mean, that's good. That's the offensive line is doing their job. The running backs are hitting the holes and getting. I mean, that's what Ryan Day talks about, turning those 4-yard gains into 6-yard gains. Like, well, if you're averaging 6 yards and you're doing it without having an 87-yarder in there, well, you're doing what they want you to do. This is against a very basic defense. They weren't running anything crazy. They weren't running. I mean, we've spent all spring talking about the jack position, and when they move that guy around, that's really primarily a run stopping position. Well, they didn't do really any of that stuff as far as I can remember. So
yeah, no, I had somebody hit me up before the game saying, hey, what kind of defense are we going to see? And I just said base. He's like, no, are we going to see Jim Knowles' defense? It's like, yes, basic. The basic defense of Jim Knowles' defense, where there's no bells and whistles. It's all just you do this and you do this, and either you manage or you don't. Because right now that's just very simple stuff that they're doing. They'll eventually start ramping it up, but don't come to any judgments about the defense being fixed or not by what you see here. And I didn't go back and watch. I didn't see a lot of missed tackles. I didn't see any safety busts or anything like that.
Yeah, no, there were not a lot of big plays, which is good. And that's, when you got Ronnie Hickman at the top of that defense, that probably is going to help with that, but he wasn't there the whole time. And, it looked like a respectable defense. I am very interested, A, to go back and watch and see it again, but B, to talk to Ross Fulton probably later on this week. Ross was, had Ross on the Morning Scoop last week to talk about, what can you actually learn from this game? And, he said, even if they play base, you can still learn from what does base mean to them. I'm going to be very interested in his thoughts on what that base defense means to him in terms of what you're going to see this fall when they get away from just the very basic concepts.
Robert with more of a comment saying, go Buckeyes, national championship win. God bless America and our veterans. Happy Easter to all. Thanks for the show. Go Buckeyes, national championship win.
It's in Los Angeles this year, the national championship, SoFi Stadium. I just got a PR email about that. So, we were just in LA last year. That wouldn't be a bad trip. Where are the semis this year?
One is in Arizona, I believe. The other is in Atlanta.
Oh yeah. It's the
We have never have
Yeah.
yet to be to Atlanta. Feels like if they make the playoffs again this year, it will inevitably take us to Arizona because that's just
Well, it'd
what
be
always
Arizona
happens.
because even if let's just say hypothetically Ohio State's the one, if they wouldn't want to draw an SEC or ACC team in Atlanta, so they would be like, well, we're going to go out west because the fans travel everywhere and go from there.
Number 4 USC says, "Hold your horses, sir." That would be. I think you could talk me into. I mean, are you going to have 2 SEC teams again? This is definitely the conversation we need to be having in the post game.
Are you concerned about
the spring game,
USC fans traveling to a game? Is that what I'm hearing, Tom?
Well, I'm just saying you make it easier for your fans. Cause, yeah, I mean, that's. Yeah, you're right. If you have Alabama, if you have Georgia, if you have Clemson, you're not going to want to play that game in Atlanta. But yeah,
Kentucky, Tennessee,
Vanderbilt, sir, Vanderbilt,
Texas A&M,
anchor down, but not in Atlanta. Yeah, I would love to finally get to go across the Peach Bowl off our list because I mean you and I have been, and Kevin, we've been to since 2017. We've been to 5 of the 6 New Year's 6 sites. Ohio State has never played in the Peach Bowl, which is one of those random. I mean the Peach Bowl was not anything significant before 2014, but Ohio State never been to the Peach Bowl. That would be an interesting one to cross off our list. But I mean that's. I'm with you. I think there's a lot of ways that cannot happen.
Wingman Ted, did they announce the Block O jersey yet, or Block O patch?
I feel like that's isn't that like an August thing?
Yeah,
I feel like that's a fall camp thing.
Yeah, it's a fall camp where they'll break it out after a practice or during a practice or something like that. Because every time we've seen it, it's been over there at the Woody on the practice field. So yeah, that'll be a while, I would think, unless they change course and announce it earlier than expected.
Do you have a leading contender for the Block O this year?
I know a lot of people are saying Cam Babb.
Cam Babb immediately jumps to mind for me. Yeah.
I don't have a great one. Does C.J. Stroud drop 7 for a year and go to 0? I don't think so. But Kevin, what do you got?
How about, even though he won't be playing and he's kind of medically retired, how about Harry Miller?
Yeah.
And Harry Miller was at the game.
Today,
Harry Miller was at the game today. We saw him coming in with the team and was on the sideline in his jersey. Like that was cool. Like that. I mean, Ryan Day catches flack from people because Ohio State doesn't win every game 700-0.
Right.
But that is a situation that is a very difficult situation that Ryan Day has handled, and his whole program. He is not just him, but he has sort of set up the program to handle that kind of a very difficult situation tremendously well. Like good for him. That's obviously a cause that is very near and dear to his heart in particular.
Elsu Zabo jumps on. I think this is the second show that she's gotten on a little late. She asked if we could do this again next weekend.
You'll have to talk to Ryan Day. I think the players might be busy, but I mean, I'm cool with coming out. If they want to do another, Spring Game 2 Electric Boogaloo, you can get an NCAA waiver to have a 16th spring practice. I'm down.
Or just show up at some random rooftop of a garage and just do shows from there.
Is it going to be windy enough? That's my primary concern.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good question. I hope so.
Kind of looking through the last ones. We're at 58 minutes on the show, so I don't have the question in front of me, but somebody wanted to talk specifically on Jordan Hancock.
Yeah, Jordan Hancock was someone who I think we had both sort of been hearing throughout the course of the spring. He was someone who was a top 50 kind of recruit last year. Came in during the summer, so he was a little behind schedule where Denzel Burke was in the spring and immediately made an impact. Jordan Hancock, you just kind of saw him. I think it was 3 games on defense, 3 games on special teams last year. And it was fine. It looked like a true freshman corner, and it was fine. But you kept hearing this spring like it's going well. There's been significant progress. He's really coming along, and then he had a very good day. It felt like he had a couple significant plays. I don't remember him having a bad play. I don't think he had any penalties. I don't think there were any big completions on him. That was one of those, like, if you remember a corner, and it's like, it's very easy to be a corner and be in the TV picture when a receiver catches a long ball and everyone goes, that guy stinks. No. You don't remember any of those, and you remember a couple positive plays. That's like, okay, that was a pretty good day. And to do it against this Ohio State wide receiver core, that's significant.
Yeah, and like I said earlier in the show, like he had the breakup where he came from behind and knocked the pass away. Then like the next play, he tackled somebody, a nice tackle over near the line of scrimmage, and I just looked over at you, and like, that was impressive. 2 plays like that right in a row to just give you a glimpse, give you an idea, and he's going to be fighting, and I'm very interested to see if there's going to be a rotation at cornerback this year, if he can work his way in. I don't know if Tim Walton has any desire to do that. That was a Kerry Combs thing, but if you've got a Jordan Hancock who can play, do you really want to wait until his 3rd year before you start playing him? I don't think so.
No, and you want to have him ready because, you've seen Cam Brown has had health issues at various points, and you want to have him as ready as possible, and getting ready means game reps. And if he's ready, there's no reason to sit him. If in the era of the transfer portal, if a guy knows he's ready and he's ready, and he's still not playing, you're opening up conversations you don't want to open up. Yeah. So if you're not going to play him if he's not ready. But if he is,
yep.
And it sure looks like he is. Yeah. I think he and is J.K. Johnson in that conversation at some point too. It feels like they should be able to put together a corner rotation because in terms of keeping guys fresh, if the other team is rotating 4 or 5 wide receivers and you're only playing the same 2 corners the whole game, eventually those dudes are going to get tired. So if you can keep those guys fresh, just give them a break for a play or 2, give them a break for a drive. That makes a big difference over the course of the game and the course of the season.
We'll go one more?
I got a comment and then I got a question, and we'll do that. Chad W. feels that we should do live all day, every day, and then suggested some sort of Big Brother type of show.
You know what? That's fine. I would get myself eliminated the first 5 minutes and be like, hope one of you 2 wins, and then see how long it lasts. Would I watch? No. I'm sure one of you would tell me how it ended up.
Day 72. We forgot to turn on monetization. That's how that show would go.
I don't know. I watch those Mr. Beast videos, and they all get lots of money for doing crazy things. I would probably stick it out because I'm cheap. Last question from Sean. Are we better now than we were at this point last year?
Yeah. Defensively, because I keep going back to the whole physician heal thyself. No,
yeah.
Don't first do no harm. Yes,
that's also
both
a thing,
of those. Yes, but and then the defense right now, first do no harm. Mm-hmm. Last year that was not a thing. They were definitely doing themselves harm. This defense, there's a more they're more confident. I think Day is more confident. He has a defensive coordinator that, even though he has not worked with long, he certainly trusts, and a proven defensive coordinator, which they haven't had before in the last couple of years, and that's hard to operate. And Day tried, and then chalked the first year up to COVID and saying, it'll be better in the second year, and it wasn't. And so I think there's going to be much more, there'll be better tackling, just more fundamentally sound. They aren't screwing themselves over.
Yeah, I think, you go around the field and you have a more proven quarterback, you have a more proven running back. The wide receivers, you probably take probably last year's unit. In terms of proven, you would take last year's unit. Tight end, maybe last year's unit. Offensive line, maybe last year's unit. Last year there was a lot of uncertainty too. Defensive line feels like you probably take this year. Linebackers, you probably take this year. Corners, you definitely take this year. Safeties, you probably take this year. I think you're gonna win out overall with this time this year compared to a year ago. I think this Ohio State team is a much more complete team. There are areas where we will get a question: who would you take off the 2021 Ohio State team and put on this team? And there are going to be some answers there, but it feels like this is a team that has the I would not take anything off the table for this Ohio State team right now in terms of championships, in terms of ultimate goals here.
And yet, when we do the game-by-game prediction, you will still go 11-1 just because that's 12-0 is so difficult.
Well, there was it was one of those ESPN FEI things or something where it put out win totals for everyone and all that kind of stuff. and it had Ohio State like off the charts incredible, and the win out percentage was 33%.
Yeah.
So that's how math works. I'm very sorry about that.
Only a third of the time does it work. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. And speaking of math, the coward Ryan Day punting on 4th and 3 from the plus 40, the ball went in the end zone. No, that was the one where the punt hit the wall. The ball hit the wall of wind and dropped it to 19, and it was like, yes, that is the outcome you deserved.
There you go. Anything else, Tom? Anything else, Kevin?
I think we're good. People are jumping in, giving us thumbs up. As I said, we need them before we sign off for the day, but I think we're good here on the postgame show.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the game. We will have like a Tuesday show where we go back and rewatch this and then talk more about stuff that maybe we didn't see first time, or stuff we were wrong, stuff you were wrong about, things like that. So that'll probably be a Tuesday show. But I want to thank you all for tuning in as always. And I guess that's it. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your long, patient wait until the football season. I'm sorry. Goodbye.